Welcome back. In this lesson, we're focused on building and optimizing your personal LinkedIn profile. Assuming you now know which profile you're going to use, whether that's an existing profile or you're creating an alternate profile, let's pull up an actual live LinkedIn profile. It'll be mine. And we're going to review the typical sections and content. All right, so looking at this now, you see that at the very top of my profile, I have two photos. One is called our header photo. The other is my profile photo. South of that, we've got my name. This really cool chunk of text. It's called the headline. We're going to spend some time on that today. And then if I scroll down below some of the other items, actually right up here, we've got our about summary. Expand it. That's going to be kind of your bio outside of the resume component here. And then I've got activity and then the all-important experience. This one's the quintessential LinkedIn section because it's all about my work history. And if I scroll through that, we're going to see things like education, licenses and certifications, skills and endorsements, and so on. Now, as you look at various LinkedIn profiles for different people, you're going to notice that there are some inconsistencies. And the main reason for that is because everybody has the ability right through the add profile section here to determine what areas they want to show on their profile. The more of these that you can show, the better. When people do visit your profile and want to take a look, the more of the stuff that might resonate or connect or be similar to what they have in their own profiles or more clearly illustrate what your personality is, the kind of person you are, that's all going to add value. However, there are some key areas here that are going to make the single biggest impact on the success rate of our invitations that we're going to send to our prospects. So let's jump over to the other screen. And right over here under the invitations that I haven't processed yet, you're going to notice a few things, all right? When you send a connection request to another LinkedIn user, the first things they're going to see are going to be your photo, your name, the headline that we talked about, and in some cases those are going to be good, in some cases they're going to be bad. Often we're going to see things like geography, so city or area where they live, and any message or at least a preview of the message that you send or they send in the invitation. We're going to cover that message in an upcoming lesson. But let's jump over to your blueprint spreadsheet and hit the Profiles tab to talk about a few of these other key fields. Okay, now the first thing you're going to notice is these grayed out rows at the top. These are only for those of you who are going to do an alternate profile. It allows you to set up the name and the login information for those. If that's not you, if you're using your primary profile, ignore or delete those. You don't need them. So the first field we're really going to focus on is the headline. We get 120 characters for the headline. Now this is where we see the most huge mistakes. Many people don't customize this field value at all, which is a huge missed opportunity. But simply regurgitating your job titles not only lame, but in many cases can even work against you. Now there are some cases where it pays to include your title in the headline, but it should never be the only thing you list. Even for those people who are using this field as it's intended, which is to expand on your area of focus, most of those who serve in some sort of a sales role, which now, by the way, pretty much means everybody watching this video, are still providing headlines that kill any chance of forming a relationship. If you're in a sales role, your primary objective for crafting a headline is to not sound like you're in a sales role. One of our recent engagements required us to optimize the profiles and LinkedIn sequences for 2 full-time salespeople. So what we did was created an alternate profile for each of them. We used connector of the dots as the job title, and then we created headlines that communicated a passion for acquiring and sharing the latest marketing strategies within that industry. The campaign was hugely successful. Now, your headline should be accurate, but it should also be focused solely on an aspect of you that's going to resonate with your persona and convince them to accept your connection request. We say that your headline should make you sound like a VIP. Here's what that means. V is for valuable. Your headline should highlight the valuable information that your connection is going to get access to. It should not highlight the products, services, or results that you offer. I'll repeat that because it's critical, and there really are so many other methodologies out there that do teach you to lead with a description of your offerings or your value proposition. That's an outdated approach. Your headline should highlight the valuable information that your connection will get access to, but not the products, services, or results you offer. We're going to promise a relationship that's based on providing non-sales value to the connection. And as you'll see later in the program, that's exactly what we're going to deliver. Gary Vaynerchuk, love him or not, has collected millions of followers because he shares daily information that those followers find valuable. He rarely, if ever, though, not that I've seen, talks about his ad agency's services or the results they're generating for their clients. The difference here is that the information that you provide makes your prospect feel smarter, but talking about the things you're selling tends to make them feel uncomfortable. I is for innocent. This one, I believe, is the most important and the most abused. Whenever I get connection requests with things like Rockstar, Revenue Ninja, Territory Sales Manager, or claims about results they generate, or that I can generate, like get 500 handpicked leads per month, my IPAs, that's what I call my incoming pitch alarm, goes off. I know that if I accept that connection request, I'm going to get a sales pitch. Your headline should be informative, but definitely not sales focused. It might sound counterintuitive because you actually are serving in a sales role right now, but this is not the time to present your value proposition. As you'll learn in our upcoming lesson on copywriting, we actually want to avoid anything even remotely similar to selling at this point. Everything's focused on providing value to your prospect. Prospects should read your headline and think, this person sounds like someone who'd be interesting to talk to, but not in a way that relates to a real sales opportunity. A good rule of thumb here is this. If your headline even slightly sounds like you're trying to entice someone to consider paying you for something, or that you might do so in the near future, you need to make some changes. Remember this because you'll hear it again in future lessons over and over. P is for professional. You need to demonstrate significant expertise related to your persona's work. But as Pixar's rules of storytelling state, don't say it, show it. Instead of calling yourself an expert or a guru or an industry leader, let others do it for you. Are you a New York Times bestselling author? Were you featured in Money Magazine? Have you spoken at TEDx? Forbes Top 50 Business Litigators in New York City? Inc. 5000? Those words are worth way more than any kudos you can give yourself. And even if you haven't yet reached that level of exposure, fall back to things like licenses and certifications or smaller awards and recognitions, even if they fall outside of your current area of expertise. Now, there's a fine line between communicating your credentials and practically begging people to think you're an expert. I like to use what I call the Titan test, and this is where I read a headline and consider whether or not a titan of business would say it. Would Google co-founder, for example, Larry Page, say, I doubled revenue 8 years in a row in his headline on LinkedIn? No, of course not, because he has more impactful things to dedicate the 120 characters to. So don't speak like you're trying to convince yourself of your expertise and success. If you want people to assume and believe that you're an expert, speak like you believe it too. On that topic, this is where a mention of a leadership job title like founder, CEO, president, owner, etc. is sometimes a positive because they can often help position you as someone with a knowledgeable perspective. But this rarely applies to titles that are sales related. VP of Business Development, for example, will set off those IPAs, the incoming pitch alarms. It's also critical that your persona would find it logical that you're reaching out to them. If your persona is an office manager and your title is chairman and CEO, that's typically going to be a big red flag for the office manager, who's going to find it fishy for such a person to be connecting with them in the first place. There are also some words, phrases, and even characters that you should avoid. Now, some of these will be common sense, but let's go through them anyway. Guaranteed, skyrocket, leads, free, strategy call, increase, help. Basically, anything related to a value proposition or sale. All caps or even partial all caps. Exclamation points. You'll also notice that a lot of LinkedIn profiles have special characters like stars and check marks and rockets. Consider your persona when deciding whether or not to use these in your profile, but as a general rule, I find them pretty obnoxious. They do draw attention. Unfortunately, they draw attention to someone's use of a gimmick, and that's not VIP. All right, let's look at a few headlines that I think are not good. I could use screenshots here because these are real, but I'd hate to have any of these people get their feelings hurt in the off chance that they hear about this, so I'm just going to read them. Increasing your sales by combining integrated media solutions with high precision targeting. Direct marketing guaranteed to get you more business. I help purpose-driven entrepreneurs realize big visions and get their message out with power, ease, and joy. Now, by and large, I think that these are poor because they have the sales component built in, and that's what we want to avoid. So now let's look at some real VIPs. Bank marketing researcher with 5 years of acquiring and sharing top ideas from fintech leaders. All right, this one strikes me as valuable because if I'm a banking leader, I suspect I might get to hear about some great marketing ideas from some of my most successful peers and competitors. It sounds innocent because nothing in it leads me to believe that he or she is trying to sell something. And I get the impression that this person's a pro because he or she seems to have a network or collection or source for great ideas from my top peers and competitors. All right, next one. Over 30 years in safety and risk management, small business owner, 2 nonprofits, conference speaker, U.S. Army veteran. This one's valuable because if I work in safety or risk management, we probably speak the same language, and we're both former military. It's innocent because there's nothing that indicates there's a product or service available for sale. And the nonprofit and Army references show me that this person's cool with dedicating some of their 120 characters to telling me about their passion for selfless service. It's pro because with 30 years of experience and conference speaking demand, this person's probably knowledgeable. Okay. Agency head, keynote speaker, podcast host, ABC World News Tonight, USA Today. All right, this one's mine. Probably recognized it, but mostly I list it here so that I remember to stress that your headline should be optimized constantly. Chances are this isn't even what my headline will look like by the time you watch this because I tend to modify it about once a month to match whatever audience I'm speaking to most at that time. Nevertheless, you can see that it keeps things very matter of fact, relies heavily on the social proof from other brand names, and saves anything related to my area of expertise until after I've convinced people they should care. As you can see, there's no single format that you have to follow here, but by following the VIP recipe in your headline, you're most likely to maximize your success rate with your connection requests, and that's the first hurdle in the process. All right, next field, job title. Now, as I already mentioned, your job title is important here, okay? You're going to want to update your current job title in particular, and even past job titles if possible. We don't want these to sound salesy. The current job title will be displayed in various lists and views, and people will often scroll down to find it. So ensuring that you use something welcoming and VIP is key. Again, we just don't want it to scare people into thinking that we're going to try to pitch them because we're not. If this is a struggle for you because you work for an employer with strict guidelines around titles, just get creative. Are you the VP of sales, but you're also a minority partner? Just go with partner as your title. Are you one of 12 territory sales managers for a CRM company? Try something like Platform Thought Leadership. Be sure to paste your draft headlines and current job title in the group comments for feedback from the group. And feel free to make several versions so that you can test them later. Until the rubber meets the road, we're all making educated guesses, but by running them in the real world, your persona's responsiveness will show you what language actually works. I even like to step away for a few days from headlines I write because I often come back and notice distinctions that I think could have a big impact on performance. So there's always value in getting feedback from people who can look at it with fresh eyes. Okay, once you have these fields ironed out in your blueprint, it's time to update your profile. Now, the TAP LinkedIn group name and the TAP group description are for a future lesson, so we're not going to cover those today. The last one that we're going to focus on in this lesson is our summary. This is, again, like our bio. It's the about section of our profile. We actually have up to 2,000 characters, which is quite a bit. Feel free to get pretty creative, pretty personal, pretty detailed in this field. Most people are not going to read it, but those who do can get some real insights into your psyche, and it's a great place for you to create some opportunities for connection between you and prospects. This does not need to be work-focused. It shouldn't just be work-focused, so feel free to make it about the things that you enjoy outside of the office. Okay, once you have these fields ironed out in your blueprint, it's time to update your profile. I have a few other tips in here, so even if you're a pro, stick with me for a few gold nuggets. Okay, so back on my profile, I'm going to click on the edit icon, and it'll pull up our edit screen. This probably goes without saying, but your name is typically going to be your name. If you have a suffix like those related to degrees or junior, senior, etc., you should include it. As far as photos go, there's nothing fishier than a LinkedIn profile with no photo, but even the wrong photo can make or break your connection acceptance rate. If you don't have a professional photo, have any friends snap a few shots of you with a friendly smile. Even a smartphone that's capable of taking those nice portraits with blurred backgrounds is likely to produce something better than 90% of the profile photos you see on LinkedIn. You don't necessarily need to be in business attire either. Consider your persona and then choose a setting that you think will resonate. But it's better to show some personality as long as that personality supports the expectations of your persona. Spend a minute scrolling through some of the suggested connections on your LinkedIn profile and then thinking or saying the first adjective that pops into your mind. This is a great exercise to help you consider how you want your own image to come across. Also note that LinkedIn will crop the header photo differently depending on whether it's on desktop or the mobile app, so be careful about getting fancy with text overlays, logos, and that sort of thing. If you really want to Photoshop such elements onto your image, try to keep them in the center of the photo so they don't get cropped in weird ways. When you have some photos of yourself, post them in the comments to get feedback and initial impressions from the group. What might seem like a cool photo to you could come across as cocky, goofy, or unapproachable to those who don't know you. Scrolling down below your name, we have our headline field where you can paste in your final headline. You're going to choose your current position. That's the one that will be featured in some list, so it's important that you have that one optimized. And then the rest of the fields below here are pretty self-explanatory, so we're not going to cover them in this lesson. So at this point, you're ready to start drafting some of your own profile content. We're looking forward to seeing your drafts in the comments, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next lesson.